Welcome back. Ambassador Adeboyega Ariyo was one of the first people I spoke to when South Sudanese voted in a referendum of January 2011 to pull out of Sudan and become an independent nation. About July that year, South Sudan became the world's youngest country. Issues that separated it from Sudan included all the fighting over regions, especially Abyei, which is blessed with an abundant deposit of oil, and development of South Sudan, as it was observed that much of that was going on more in the north of the country. And it's been 3 years since that separation happened, but in recent weeks, South Sudan had been experiencing its first crisis. Sadly, up to 1,000 people have paid the ultimate price for reasons that should never have been. And that's when Ambassador Adeboyega Ariyo explains. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us on Diplomatic Channel. Well, you've kept a close eye on what's going on in South Sudan. I remember you're one of the first people I spoke to when the country split from Sudan and became an independent country in 2011. What do you think is the real reason, for all of this fighting? I mean, does it trail back to that time before the independence?
Thanks for having me again on the Sudan. As you remember during that discussions we had on the Sudan in 2011, I wasn't happy that Sudan broke into two. And I gave my reasons because I anticipated that there would be ethnic fighting, there would be problems. I remember saying that time that what you are seeing now will lead to more countries in the Sudan. And so I'm not really happy that what I suggested will happen is already manifesting itself within a space of 2 years. In Africa, like Sudan, Sudan is a melting point for many African countries. When you trace back the history of human civilization in Africa, you will find some of this, that some people left Sudan to go to East Africa, some to Southern Africa, some to West Africa, some to Northern Africa. I'm not happy. We should be coming together and not splitting ourselves into pieces, because the smaller we are individually, the less important we are in the scheme of things.
So what really is the problem? I mean, because some have said it is ethnicity, some have said it is political. What really is the underlying remote cause of the crisis?
The remote cause of the crisis is ethnicity. And every man wants to be at the top. And the type of federation they had, those who insisted on having Southern Sudan, they were not they took a lot of things for granted. The right of each ethnic group to develop to a higher level of state of things, the right of their economic right, their developmental, they thought somebody is this and that, he will do that, he will do that. No. In fact, when you go back now, you now see, John Garang never fighting for an independent Southern Sudan. And we now can see why he died. And his death is possibly could not be traced to, nobody has been found to be responsible for that death. And the president of Sudan now was his deputy. Now his deputy is also interested in being president. And so I don't know. For me, it would have been better if you had not created Southern Sudan and you find an accommodation to resolve the problem of the Sudan. Because the problem of the Sudan were three, which would have, if it had been addressed, would have solved the problem. You would not have had a balkanized Sudan. There was Arabism, attempt to Arabize Sudan. That is the whole of Sudan. And the population of the whole Sudan before, 48% of them were in the north. They were mostly Arabs. Then 23 and so percent, Darfur, Southern Sudan, all of that. Whereas if you had stopped the problem of Arabization of the Sudan, then you would not have talked about balkanization. If you had addressed the issue of Islamization of the Sudan, you would not have had the problem of Southern Sudan. If you had had what I call territorial democracy in Sudan, whereby you spread the development across Sudan, and both parts of the Sudan, all parts of Sudan are participating in the central government, you would not have had issues of Southern Sudan. So those are the issues. Now you have Southern Sudan, and now you are this play. Now it's mostly Christian you have in Southern Sudan. Now the development is also going to be concentrated in Juba, the Jonglei region, and so you have that problem coming up again. So territorial democracy, participation of every part of Sudan in key areas of Southern Sudan, in key areas of governance of Southern Sudan is also an issue in the present play that is coming out. How can you explain? The negotiation in Addis Ababa will start any moment from now, provided they are able to agree on the issues. The issues they are talking about are just nonsensical. They're talking about how to cease fire.
We'll get to those issues in just a minute, but I want to pick up on some of the things you said as some of the problems that they're facing. You said it's all narrowed down to ethnicity.
Yes.
That could also explain probably why President Salva Kiir, we understand that the past few months he's sacked governors, he has sacked his cabinet, and then sacked the vice president, and then claims that the vice president, of course, tried to stage a coup against him. So are all these also tied down to ethnicity, the sacking of the governors and the sacking of the cabinet? Does it sounds like, I mean, he had it coming, the coup itself.
Yeah, it's dangerous to talk about coup, because if you have a coup,
let's say the crisis.
The crisis. Because the way the whole thing started, the man was suspicious. He said the soldiers in the Southern Sudan army who were from the Nor tribe or ethnic group should be decommissioned. They were disarmed. Automatically, these guys also have to defend themselves, because then you arrested about 11 political leaders who are not from your own ethnic group. You lock them up. I foresee a situation whereby other ethnic groups are likely to also come up and claim their right. In Southern Sudan, we have about 3 regions divided into 10 states. Now, and when you see them, they cluster the way they are grouped together. The Jonglei region where you have, the Upper Nile region where you have the oil area, Abe is also there. These are problems that Juba is right down in the south.
Abe is still under contention anyway.
Abe is still under contention, so you have a problem. And most of the referendums that ought to have been done in Southern Sudan have not been done. So you have a problem on your hand. I believe strongly that the man needs to, somebody said it's not tactical, somebody said he's not a politician, somebody said that he has not done, well, I know everything they accuse him of, as it could be, it's like a case of an elephant. The way you see one side or the other, you call him. But as I'm concerned, the international community needs to also come back to the realization that breaking Sudan into pieces or breaking African countries into pieces, at the end of the day, will create a lot of problems for them.
But the African countries themselves chose to break up. Don't forget the referendum was done. It was in January 2011. There was a referendum, and South Sudanese people decided to split from Sudan. In fact, they were actually happy the day they got their independence. And many of them started coming back home.
I think if you are very vast in the international politics in the area, but I like to suggest that the role the Western countries played in education, orientation, ideology, making them think that it is a Christian-Muslim war, has a lot of things to play in the way they voted. I've served in Cairo, and I served in Addis Ababa, and I knew how things are played, how the Western world are supporting and funding the Southern Sudan based on the issue of the Northern Sudan, the Khartoum government, enslaving. It's a case of still enslaving. It's a case of Arabs incursion into Africa. It's a case of Islamization being stopped. So all these are things that are propelled, are pumped into their heads. When they have problem, now where are they running to? Recently, when this problem came up, it was in the news about 200,000 of them ran to Sudan, to Khartoum. Why are they going back there? One would have expected them to go to Uganda or Kenya. There was no report of anybody going to Uganda or to Kenya or even to Sahel. You know, South Sudan has so many borders. Kenya, Uganda, Sahel, Central African Republic, and of course the Sudan. So the fact remains that one needs to have a critical look. Think big for the Sudan. Don't think in microcosm that you want this to be, you want this. You cannot gain anything, and it's going to when the crisis starts now. Who is losing? We Africans are the ones losing. We are killing ourselves with weapons manufactured here, not manufactured in Africa, but manufactured somewhere else. When the crisis started, some embassies started packing and leaving. And they are the people who engineered the establishment of that country.
But we are making steps. We are taking steps in the Sudan crisis. But as the leaders, as the two sides who have sent delegates to Addis Ababa discuss, really, what is the way out of the crisis in South Sudan?
The way out is simply, they have to talk to them. They have to release those 11 people.
You think they should be released?
They should be released. Because they are the key players in the Sudan. In the Southern Sudan Marcher side. If you don't release them, you don't lock the people who are going to talk up, and you say you are talking with who? Those are the political leaders who are support. They may as well take a Marcher, or what do you call him, and lock him up also and say you are negotiating with somebody. It's not done. I'm just looking at it as a fair. You must have the two sides equally represented. That is one. Then they must stop killing people.
There has to be a ceasefire.
There must be a ceasefire. That ceasefire must be observed and put in place by United Nations or African Union per se.
Ambassador, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure being here.